Well, guys, hello. Welcome back. It looks like you're about to say something, Zach.
I was gonna do like Resident Evil,
The Nemesis Project. Yeah. We're back, guys. Uh the last thing we did was talk about Resident Evil 3 remake. That's a really fucking long time, dude. Mostly my fault because I read really, really slow. Uh, but we're gonna be talking about the books because we said we were gonna talk about the books. But here we are. Uh, I'm Joe Dubs,
Yeah, I'm Zach.
and
Yeah,
let's get into. And I'm gonna let Zach quarterback this because he's the one that he read all the books and probably researched it more than me. But I've read the Umbrella Conspiracy. I almost said Umbrella Chronicles, and then the Resident Evil City of the Dead, which is the third book, and this is the first book. But we're going to be talking about all of it. So, where do you want to go with this first, Zach?
well, I sort of thought we'll talk mostly about the books based on the first and second game,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll start with the Umbrella Conspiracy. That's the one based off the first game.
Yeah. So right off the bat, I want to say the books. These books that I'm holding right now should have been the movies. And to kind of go a little off topic a little bit, with all the news about Resident Evil, the live action movie that's coming out, uh, looks like they're sticking to the books and the games and the actual lore of Raccoon City and Irons and everybody. So I'm kind of excited about that, and I'm kind of excited to talk about these books here.
Yeah.
But
Um.
I think what I really really like about the books is that all the stuff because when you play a game, right, you're invested in the moment, um, and you don't know what's happening around you. The books like to show you like what is happening with this character. How is they go through all the senses of your body, touch, feel, smell, and taste. Now, when you think of rotting bodies, right? Like you don't see that in a video game that like they show that it's disgusting, but you don't know about the smell of it. You don't hear Barry going, "Oh, it fucking stinks" or something like that. Or like the Chris Redfield like almost vomiting because he smells like this dead zombie he just killed. So I really like about that.
Well, hey, in the remake they do show that with Jill. Remember the
Yeah.
bathtub zombie?
Yeah.
No, but like, yeah, that scene you're talking about, which is like that is one of my favorite parts of that book, is when Chris encounters the first zombie
Mm-hmm.
and he smells it. And he goes into this whole thing where he flashbacks to when he like fell off of his bike and landed in front of like a dead skunk or a raccoon or something.
Yeah.
And he smelled it, and it was like, damn, that was pretty vivid. Like, really.
Yeah, because you get all the thought process of these characters. Because when you're a player, you're worried about how am I going to get past this group of zombies? I need to get the rocket launcher. I got to get the first aid spray. You're not thinking about the lore unless you read every fucking file, right?
Yeah.
Um, and this puts life to the character, in my opinion. The books.
Yeah, it does. And you get that advantage of jumping around between everybody's different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can get Wesker's perspective. And it's interesting because for a while he's played pretty straight.
Yeah.
There's no indication of like, oh, I'm gonna fuck these guys over until like about a third of the way through the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, with Wesker, his personality that I got through the book is like, "Hey man, I'm that cool captain guy. I'll stick up to you, bro," and all that stuff. And then at the end, it's just like, fuck you. I'm a fucking I work for Umbrella and I'm gonna screw you. I'm doing these experiments. See, like my tyrant, he's fucking amazing. But like to touch up on like the beginning of the book is like we go straight into the game of getting to the mansion. I like we know like a short story, like a little paragraph that scrolls by, like on this day, we go to the Spencer Mansion. This like goes into like you ever like watch those cop shows and stuff and they're all like sitting around in the meeting. He's like, we gotta capture this guy.
Yeah.
That's what we get in the beginning. We get Chris Redfield's pissed because they're sending in Bravo team first and all that. And everybody around him is like happy a little bit, and Chris is just fucking pissed. And Jill Valentine's late.
Yeah, it's like it opens up and it shows like there's more personal motivation for them involved in this.
Mm-hmm.
Like with Jill, it's like she just moved to the town there and joined the precinct, and she got to know these girls that lived next door to her. They were like kids,
Mm-hmm.
and they were some of the people that got killed in the cannibal murders. And she felt really bad about that, and it was like she wants to like help solve the case so she can kind of like get some closure on that.
Yeah, and I do like that all around them they don't know what's going on. Like they just think like cannibalism, people are eating each other, like they're all nuts.
Yeah.
And I really like that angle. Because when you're putting into the game itself, you're just like, oh man, I'm fighting zombies. That's what I'm doing. In the book, you're kind of like, all right, this organization's weird. These people are eating each other. Like if you're going into this cold in the books, by the way, which sorry to like go off topic. The only research I did was listening to other people talk about the book, because you don't see that around. Nobody reads books anymore, which is sad.
It's true.
But like all of the people that read books that I read up on and watched YouTube videos of, they never played the games. And that's interesting.
That's weird. Yeah.
I mean, there was a couple that obviously, like the games, and I saw one said, I watched the movies first. I'm like, you're stupid.
Oh my God. Whoa. Yeah. Talk about some weird dissonance there, but
yeah, but like, sorry to cut you off, but going into it cold, it's amazing how they set up what's going to happen, and eventually deal with zombies, hunters, and lickers and all that stuff.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I think I was just gonna keep going with like where where the main characters are coming from in this, where they have a little bit more personal motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Like with Chris, he knew a guy who he was like he'd been friends with him for a while. The way they portray Chris in this is that he's lived in Raccoon City basically his entire life.
Yeah.
And Claire's gone off to college. She's gone.
Mm-hmm.
She's out of town now. But like he knew this guy who was his best friend who he grew up with, and he ended up becoming an Umbrella employee.
Mm-hmm.
And he calls him like in the middle of the night and tells him like, Chris, I'm in trouble, man. I gotta like talk to you, man. Can you meet me at this diner at like 4 a.m? And he's like, what the fuck? Okay. And he goes there and he never sees him. He never shows up. He can't find anything out about where he went. He just disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like wound up into thinking there's some kind of weird conspiracy thing with Umbrella going on. And it causes people to think he's kind of paranoid and a little bit on edge.
Yeah.
Compared to like the other guys.
Yeah, because there was a time like Barry and like Joseph and all that, and they're just like, oh, lighten up, Chris. And he's like, he gives like that fuck you vibe and stuff.
A little bit, yeah. He's not that standoffish, but he comes off a little bit.
Yeah. I do like Jill Valentine's story, because remember when we play the game and you get that funny line from Barry, Jill Valentine, she's the master of lock picking,
unlocking.
Yeah, unlocking. you learn why in the book she is that, because her father's like a criminal.
Yeah, they kind of flesh out. SD Perry kind of fleshes out her backstory more to
Hmm.
explain that. It says like basically like her father was like a professional fucking burglar,
Hmm.
a thief, and he used lock picks on his bullshit and everything, and he basically trained her in all that same stuff. And he went to jail, and she kind of just went straight and became like a cop, but she still has that skill set.
Hmm.
Okay, at least you came up with a kind of a plausible explanation for like why Jill would have a lockpick and be the master of unlocking. you know, I mean, I could see personally, like, I'm not really sure about this, but I was under the impression sometimes in like SWAT organizations or like special forces shit, they would train people to pick locks and stuff like that anyway.
Hmm.
But I didn't really look into that. That's just the general impression I got from like other stuff.
I think they just wanted to make her like badass, like her father was a criminal and she's a cop. Two
Yeah.
opposites and all that stuff. That's what I got out of it. Like,
Mhm.
I'm never gonna be like you, Dad. I'm gonna be honest and save the world.
Well, the thing with that dynamic was like she was pretty much like, yeah, I guess I'm just going to become a thief, and then he went to the slammer.
Hmm.
He got, and then he basically told her like, no, don't do this anymore. Like, just go have a normal life.
Yeah,
He convinced her to give it up, so it wasn't really like that.
and
I'm
the
sorry, I remember all this shit because I've read these books like several times.
yeah
Like I
my
have them kind of memorized a
well,
little bit.
that's why you're gonna quarterback it, because I read so much shit with my job that like I start to mend like my job with these books, and that's bad. It's like tax and fucking zombies, tax law.
You get tired of reading and you don't want to read that much. And then if you
Hmm.
read, it's like shit's running together for you. Yeah.
But it was refreshing to like, and it's going to sound like me being lazy, but me going into a familiar story and kind of knowing what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Like, because like you get the story of the game, but you get some side pieces with it. It's like it's like you're getting a meal, and then you're getting the sides, pretty much. Like, you know what you're getting, but you're gonna get like some French fries in there, maybe some corn and mashed potatoes and all that. Like, that's what I thought about the extra stuff, like learning about Jill, learning about what's happening in this section. There was things that were missing in it, like when the guy who gets bitten by the snake. Like, you don't get that scene.
Richard, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it had just already happened.
Hmm. And I don't know if that's a like I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, there I read up on some people that like, oh, I hate that they took this out. I'm like, why? It was a simple scene where Jill's. I still remember that scene because it was very, very funny. Because you know you're tasked to get the anti venom, and then when you come back, certain ways you could either heal him or he'll die, and you're like, oh, Jill, no, oh, and all that stuff. Like, you don't need that in the book, but I noticed that I didn't see some things. But I digress. I'm moving around, just like how we do in Big Trouble.
Hey, it's all right. Um, let's see. Yeah, I guess we can talk about some of the little differences, the extra things they do besides setting up the main characters' motivations and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I like that it shows more of their kind of normal life a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you get more glimpses into like their past through like just thinking randomly. It's like, oh, it reminds me of that time this happened, like which happens in real life. You tend to just think back at that stuff. Things will just randomly make you think about something that happened in your past or for whatever reason.
Yeah, just like the zombie scene before with this the skunk. Like, having that like bleed into the thing gives characters life. And
Like, yeah,
it, because if you just have a character that's like who just does like voiceovers, like, this is a gun and all that stuff, and it will kill. I forgot what the line. I never get anything right when I mimic
It's a
shit.
weapon. It's really powerful,
Yeah,
especially against living things.
yeah.
Unlike other weapons, like just,
Like in a book, I'm just using an example. Like him saying that, he could be like, "Yeah, I bought this gun at this store, and it was, I did went to the firing range. It would be amazing." But like, I don't remember, or he didn't say it in this book about his gun. So,
I he doesn't really make much of a comment on his gun.
mm,
Like it's just he likes it, so he carries it instead of standard issue.
mm.
He prefers the power of it. It's like, okay, I get that. I feel that way too. I like shooting Magnum handguns; they're fun. You can say whatever you want about my penis or whatever, but anyway, like I like how she explains some of the weird lines in this in the book. Like she puts some of the lines in,
Mm.
and there's that part where Barry says something to Jill, and one of the times they meet up, and she says, it's like she noticed that he's acting strange. Like, it must be stress. He must be tired because he says something weirdly or something stilted or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, I guess the stress is getting to me. You're like, I'm going to go get some fresh air.
It makes me wonder. I guess when we talk about the author, I wonder if she played the games before doing this.
She did, actually.
Okay.
So I went to find out some stuff about her because, like, I knew nothing about her other than, for all these years, other than she writes science fiction stuff. And she mostly writes for like established like franchise books. Like she wrote a lot of Star Trek books, for example.
Okay.
And like
Cool.
in some other things, like things of that nature. And then she was doing these too, like when she was really early in her career. This was like some of the first, I guess, major work. Like video game novelization adaptations weren't too common back then when these came out.
Yeah.
Like, geez, like I'm trying to think what was out before this. And the only one I know for certain was probably the Doom novels.
Yeah, I think you're
that,
right. They
that
they
came
didn't
out
do any
before
Final
this.
Fantasy, right?
No, not
No.
yet. And there was a Sonic the Hedgehog book. I remember that because I had it. But I was a kid. It was for kids, and I was a kid.
Yeah.
They had a couple of those, but that was kind of it, really.
What do you think about her writing?
It's very readable. It's easy to like understand. Like I said, she's pretty good at portraying just like kind of like people having a casual, believable conversation or something like that.
Yeah.
Like the dialogue is very believable, even though she'll put in like some of those real stilted lines from the game.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll, like I said, she'll come up with a good excuse for why somebody said that. It really only happens with Barry though. Like Chris doesn't say weird shit like he does in the game. Or Wesker. But that's kind of what I always thought about her writing. It was pretty easygoing, and the dialogue it felt pretty real. Like this is realistically how people talk to each other, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like I always give Quentin Tarantino huge props for his dialogue because I'm like, that's how people really fucking talk. Like if you're friends with somebody and you've known them for a while, or you run together and you're just like in the car driving and you're bullshitting about stuff, that's exactly how people talk.
Mm-hmm.
There's cursing.
Yes.
People say shit and hell and damn and bastard and bitch and goddamn it.
Yeah, because
I
I
don't think
think I think in a situation like that, I wouldn't be like, oh God, Jilly, oh God, Jolly, this zombie.
Willikers.
Yeah.
Jeebus. Like, let me see, like what I have wrote down about her. Let's see. She seemed to treat the books, like writing all these licensed books, more like business transactions. So yeah, she primarily worked on licensed novels,
Mm-hmm.
and they usually had tight deadlines. She'd have like 6 to 8 months to write a book, basically. So that includes these. She had 6 to 8 months to write them.
Damn.
So yeah, I'm like, that's a pretty tight deadline for like a 300-ish page book.
Well, I guess it's kind of easy when you already have the chunk of the plot down, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I think that helps. And she did play the games. I wrote she played through 1 and 2 and I think 3. Code Veronica is one where I start to think that she cheated a little bit, but which I'll get to later.
mhm.
Um, but this was the other thing I couldn't believe was apparently all these books were written and submitted as first draft. They
Really?
were yes, they were all first drafts and they went through that way.
That had to be like Capcom being like, "This is great. Okay, let's get it out there."
And she didn't hesitate about it. She didn't beat around the bush. She's like, yeah, all these were first drafts. And when asked about certain details though, or like what she really liked in her books, she can't remember. But I guess because she was cranking these books out.
Mhm.
So it's just like, okay, it's done. So it's like I guess credit to her because they came out pretty good, I thought, for like, a video game adaptation.
Yeah.
Like I'll admit to it, I actually own a lot of video game adaptation novels. I don't have the Doom ones yet. I kind of want to track those down ever since I found out about them.
Mhm.
But like these were like the start of that for me, really. I have like a couple for Myst.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, they did a few books. It was the guys that wrote the games, like the story and stuff, though. So it's all coming from them.
Mhm.
And then I have a lot of stuff from Blizzard, like from the Blizzard games. I have a bunch of those books. So these kind of fall into my purview of like, book interests. But they hold up pretty good, I thought. Like it helps if you're a fan. That's why I'm like surprised you told me it's like a lot of people that talk about these like never played the games
Mhm.
or even saw the movies. Like that's just really odd to me.
Yeah. I think I was just finding a lot of just bookworm people. They're just like, "Oh, this looks pretty cool. Let's see what this is about."
That's kind of why I wanted to go over these a little bit though, because you said it earlier. It seemed like nobody that really they have like a channel that kind of revolves around Resident Evil fandom or something.
Mhm.
They don't really talk about the books or the comics or any of that kind of stuff.
And I think it's finally turning around. I think we're going to see a lot of uh those channels that you just talked about start reading them because of what the live action movie. Now, keep in mind, I didn't. There's no trailer out. There's no like actual plot yet of what's gonna go down. But like the casting that they're doing, the pictures that I'm seeing, like they're bringing the truck in you know Resident Evil 2, the guy who eats the fucking hamburger and crashes and shit. Like that's making it into the film. Like any other like fucking Hollywood movie, like Paul W.S. Anderson, he'd probably be like, "This is stupid. I'm not gonna put this in here." But like, I feel like those movies are gonna have people be like, "Oh man, it's almost like the book," because you're going to hear people like me and you, hopefully, if they come on YouTube and talk about this. And they go, "Oh, man, I really want to know what Jill Valentine's doing or what Chris Redfield is doing. How did they get there? What's happening around them?"
Yeah,
But
maybe, who knows? Maybe they'll use these as kind of a reference.
mhm.
I don't
what
know.
what did you think of the tyrant fight at the end?
That was cool. It was kind of like this also solves like some plot issues that come from these games,
Mm-hmm.
which is like, when they have like alternate endings. If you notice, like really they stopped doing the alternate endings. Like, well, like they had one, they didn't have that in two really. Um it would just change if you swapped discs depending on what disc you started on.
Yeah.
But three did have alternate endings, and that was the last game that really did.
Yep.
But it didn't really like change the results much. The end result was always like she got away, they nuked the town, and that maybe Nikolai survived, maybe he didn't, kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But like here, Resident Evil 1 was always really messy with its alternate endings, where it was like, what really happened? What's canon? Like everybody knows now. They all got out. Like Rebecca, Barry, Jill, Chris, all four of them got out.
Yeah.
But back then, when you were playing the game when it was new, it was like, who, which playthrough is canon? Because like you have to pick one, and like different shit happens. Like when you play Chris, Barry's just fucking not in the game,
Mm-hmm.
and then like when you play Jill, like Rebecca's just not in the game at all. So like in here, everything's happening at once. It's like she combined both parallel stories and made it to where everybody meets up at the end and they all fight the tyrant. It's kind of cool.
Because she probably played the game. And
Yeah.
how old was she when she wrote these books?
Oh man, she was like in her 20s.
Oh, okay, so she was probably a gamer. Like, I got to play multiple, scenarios. Or maybe.
It seemed like it, yeah. From what I could tell from the interviews, is she was kind of a gamer earlier on in her life, and then she just got older and had kids and just kind of dropped it.
Yeah, just like most
Yeah.
people. Be, I think she probably saw those scenes and go, I can't write. Like, I can't be like, hey, if you want to see this scenario, go in the back of the book and see what this scenario is. I think she had to make a scene where all four of them get out, and that's what made it canon.
That'd be kind of interesting, like a choose your own adventure
Resident Evil.
Resident Evil book.
Let's email or tweet fucking SD Perry if she has a fucking Twitter.
But yeah, anyway, I guess going back to like how they're setting stuff up, I like them setting up the motivations and kind of more, you get more of a feel of their everyday life a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I like all the interactions that they have, like going into the police station. It's like you get to see Chris talk to Forrest, and it's like Forrest doesn't utter a fucking word in the game. You don't know what he's like at all.
Yeah.
And then like, but you get a pretty good impression of him in this, and then like you find out, oh, they're actually friends.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, that's cool. You get a little interaction like that. You get more interactions with Wesker, so it's kind of, he's got a little bit more of character to him. They all hang out in the STARS office and they do this briefing thing until they find out, oh, Bravo team's helicopter went down. They sent out the flare or whatever.
And Chris was pissed.
He was pissed. So they geared up, they got in the helicopter and they went. And from that point, it's kind of following the beats of the original game story.
Yeah. Trying to think what else. Again, with the alternate scenes, with Chris kills the snake outright in his book. There is no second snake battle.
Yeah, he just kills it in the attic. Chris is the one that battles the snake and finds fucking Richard. Like, I actually can't remember off the top of my head if he was. I think he was already dead when he found him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happened. Which can happen in the game if you screw around too much. You'll just see him laying there dead, and then you'll be like, "It's Richard. He's dead." It's like fuck. Let's see what else. Like, Jill, of course, gets trapped in the room with the ceiling thing. That thing with Barry happens there, and she gets a shotgun.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. Like the portrayal of, oh my god, I found a shotgun was like pretty like believable. Like, it's like I'm trapped in this crazy house and there's like mutants and zombies or whatever, and it's like I have a shotgun. Oh my god.
It portrays the player in this book how we feel when we get the shotgun, because we always start off with in Resident Evil 1 we always started off with a Beretta, and then
unless you're Chris.
Yeah. Then you get like a knife. When you get that shotgun, you feel powerful. And you don't in this book, when she gets it's like, yeah, it hits the spot just like the player does.
The weight is comforting. I remember that. Let's see. I think Chris meets Rebecca the same way. Like you can, I think there was a little bit of you could meet her two different ways. Originally, it was like you either meet her in the hallway with Richard, or you find her in the storeroom. And it's whoa, he gets sprayed. He doesn't say whoa like in the game though. He just walks in and is like, fuck, like getting maced.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, oh God, I'm sorry. It's not, it's a lot more natural. It comes off a lot more naturally. You get more of Rebecca in the book too. Like there's more instances where it's just kind of her like knocking around doing stuff on her own, or she's reading the files in that trunk because she lost her gun.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris is like, okay, I don't want you wandering around and you don't have a way to defend yourself right now. So just like, how about you stay here and I'll keep going and I'll come back later to check on you, because he feels kind of protective of her because she reminds him of his sister.
Yeah, and if you remember, she's 18, right?
Yep.
He's like,
they kept that in. There's like, I went to university and graduated early. It's like, holy shit, look at the big brain over here.
mm-hmm. Because she's the medic of the team and she does all the mixtures and stuff. The Plant 42 battle was kind of a letdown in my opinion.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't even really remember it that well.
Yeah, because you're just like, wait, was that Planet? Was that Plant 42? It's like, holy shit, that was so quick. It's like it could have been a good scene to describe like this plant monster just like trying to kill you. Like it was just like,
is it Rebecca just kills it with that thing, right? The mixture, the V-Jolt.
Yeah, the V-Jolt.
That's what happens. Yeah, because man, it would have been such a cool. My favorite encounter is like when you go in there with Jill and you're just not prepared. The Barry comes and helps you.
Yeah.
And he just has that reaction like in the first game. What in the hell? I don't even. What in the hell was that thing? After he just kills it with a flamethrower.
Man, I should have been Barry Burton for Halloween. Come to think of it.
I'm trying to remember some of the other stuff. There's more scenes with Wesker as he's like hiding out in the mansion, and there's more of a like, you don't know how he's able to evade everybody for so long, but she kind of sets that up where he has all the keys to all the rooms in the entire, almost the entire grounds.
Mm-hmm.
The basement, the weird guardhouse, he's missing something for the labs. It takes him a while to find it. I think it's the metals is what he's looking for. He just doesn't have that. But he's like hiding out in like all the other rooms when you don't have the keys for him yet. Basically, it's like he can go in all the helmet key rooms and he just hides in that weird. You know that one room that's like by the art gallery.
Yes.
That you can't go in at first. It's like a weird little office. Apparently, he spends a lot of time in that office. He's just like hanging out there and listening and waiting and plotting and shit, thinking about all the money he's gonna spend. He fucking gets out of there. It's like, yeah, there it is. That's Wesker.
Yeah. I think she wrote Wesker pretty well. Like I said, in the beginning, like he's this innocent, I'm your buddy leader type of guy when he's dealing with the chief. He's like, yeah, chief. The chief is quite an asshole. I got you guys and all that stuff. And then and then when like you get towards the end of the book, it's almost like a wrestling heel turn. We're just like, oh my god, it was me, Austin. It was me all along. Like I had that moment.
The moment where that happens is like when everybody splits up after getting in the main hall.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he sends Chris in first to go investigate the gunshot.
Yeah.
Goes off. He doesn't come back for a while because of what happens. And then he's like, all right, Jill and Barry, you go. And then they go. And then he just walks up the stairs and hides in that little like offshoot there. Mm-hmm. On the top floor of the hall, and they come back and they just don't ever look up there and they walk out. And he's just like, I lost them. Yes. It's like that was all he had to do was like walk up the stairs and hide.
That's great. Trying to think what else to talk about. I mean, we could spend hours talking about this book.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really there's no point in really breaking the entire book down because it's like it's the plot of the game. It's just expanded on.
Yeah,
it's just more characterization and stuff is that's the main draw. is if like you like the Resident Evil characters and the setting,
Mm-hmm.
and you wish there was more, then you get these books. Basically, that's the selling point. Um, there's you can talk more about all the little differences that happens in the plot, how they explain like what goes where, who does what.
Mm-hmm.
But it's I don't know. I feel like you get the point, like already.
Yeah. So I mean, we're gonna say off the bat, we recommend these books. I mean, I only read twice of the books, two of the books, which I am gonna be reading all of them because, I don't know. I've been in the mood for reading lately, so I actually kind of started,
The
Caliban
Calvin
Cove.
Cove,
Yeah.
yeah, the second one. I'll kind of give my opinion on the books later. Like
Hmm.
we'll go ahead and start talking about the second one. I mean the one based on the second game, I should say.
This
Um,
book is beefy.
it's bigger. It's a little thick.
Mhm. I out of both books, I enjoy this one better. Not because Resident Evil 2 is a better game. I like because they expand on in the first book. They expand. Are we going into the second book? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah. We're just gonna go into it, and then
Uh,
I'll turn around and talk about the other books you don't have without spoiling stuff, I guess.
okay. What like in the first book where you learn about what Wesker's doing or what other characters are doing, they do it 10. She does it 10 times better in this book, because you find a story about Annette Birkin, which is pretty surprising because in the game you see her like certain areas, but you don't know what happens in between that. I mean, Resident Evil 2 Remake kind of sheds light on it a little bit. But in the book, there's like a fucking chapter for her. You learn about Ada, uh, and Ada, like, why she literally comes back and helps Leon because the whole time she's like, I'm gonna get rid of Leon. He's just I'm gonna use him and he's gonna be gone. And like he saves her like multiple times, especially with the alligator and everything. And then she's like having a monologue in her head, like I need to ditch this guy, but he's saving me, and I'm starting to like him. And I
Yeah.
and I like that. And the only thing I'm disappointed about is I feel like Claire got misused in this book.
You really
I
think
think
so?
Yeah, I think Leon had most of the action, and Claire was just kind of like a side character in this.
See, I don't know. Like I was actually I like both of them equally, but I kind of like uh, I like Claire's characterization a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
just because it felt like that to me. It's like you kind of get a feel for like who Leon is in the game and everything. He's like, I'm a rookie cop guy, and I'm all about doing my duty, and I want to help people.
I'm
He's like
late.
Claire. What?
He's like, I'm late. I need to go to the gas station.
Yeah, I liked all that stuff too of him getting before that. We'll get to that in a sec, but like,
Yeah.
like with Claire, it's like she's Chris's sister, and she's she's a good person, I guess, and she might be in a little bit over her head, but that's kind of all you sort of get out of the original game, other than the fact that she's like, oh, I have to watch out for Sherry.
Mm-hmm.
That's in here. I feel like Perry does a better job of kind of fleshing her out, and I think there's more to her in the remake as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought she came off a little bit like a side character in the game.
Oh, that's kind of interesting because
Like,
I
when-
like
when
her
you-
in the
when you
game
get-
more.
Yeah, like I mean, I like her too. I've always kind of been more partial to her anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a look and everything, but yeah, like I kind of found her banter and stuff to be interesting. Like her inner monologuing, it felt again like pretty real.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of tomboyish attitude she has comes off a lot better in the book.
Oh yeah, I'll agree with you with that because like in the game you're just like, oh, she's wearing these like motorcycle punk rocker kind of stuff, and like in this she's like, you understand why she's wearing that. Like it comes off really, really well. But I kind of want to touch on Claire a little bit because the monologue of like because in the game you learn about she's trying to find her brother, right?
Yep.
In this one, you get the monologue be like, "Oh, I need to go to the diner because that's where Chris would go. He would go to the diner." And it's funny that you brought up in the first book where he's like, "Oh, Chris's friend from Umbrella, they're gonna go to the diner because that's where they're gonna discuss." And it brings up in this book that the diner that's his favorite place to go to eat.
Yep. She talks about how they used to always eat there really late at night
Mm-hmm.
because they were both night owls and stuff when she'd come to visit. And just it's like although the staff knows him, I can go there and talk to one of the staff, one of the waitresses, and ask, it's like, hey, have you seen Chris? And she'll be like, oh, I saw him a couple days ago or whatever. Is like
Mm-hmm.
what she's expecting, but that doesn't happen. So
Yeah.
she gets in a big rush to leave her dorm and puts on just whatever she can put on and just drives out there because she can't get a hold of him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Leon is just driving there because he's going to his new assignment. He got assigned to fucking Raccoon City. And he's driving in his Jeep. And he's getting gas and he's late. And he's like, Jesus, I'm late. I'm just fucking up already. kind of thing. And I love all the shit going on, like when they just both get into town. Like that's built up like really good.
Mm-hmm. She does that really well of again interacting with the characters because in the game obviously there's a big translation gap between like Japanese people and American English and all that stuff, and you're just like, Leon, no. And this one is just like an actual conversation because you're getting it from a person that knows how to speak English.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about it.
I just liked when they were both coming into town, like just then.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, where is everybody? Like, what? This is weird. What the fuck? Like, why are all the lights off? Is there a part? Is there like a public function somewhere further downtown? Like, what the hell? They both have similar thought. Like Leon sees some people walking around, like
Mm-hmm.
far off in the distance or some shit, like a block over, and he's like, "Ah, there must be like a party. They're stumbling around, it's drinking." Okay. And he gets further in, and it's like more shit. There's more shit where the lights are out, or something just doesn't feel right, and it just builds.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets got by zombies, and he gets the fuck out of Dodge.
Yep.
And a similar thing happens for Claire. She's like walking around, like, where the fuck's everybody? She goes to the diner. It's like, hello, where is everybody?
That's the only thing that kind of makes me think because in this book and also in the game as well, like the Spencer Mansion happened, right? And then like there was some news stuff about cannibals. Like, wouldn't they have an idea that it might be something going on at this point?
I think Claire knew about the cannibal thing
Mm-hmm.
just from Chris, but I don't think Leon really knew about it. Is how I remember it.
Yeah.
Like he was just coming in and he just didn't really know that much. He might have read all a paper. There was a cannibal murder. Well, that's crazy, and that might have been the extent of it.
Mm-hmm.
Where Claire, I think, probably knew more stuff about it just because Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then the stuff happens in the beginning game. Happens where they meet up and get to the station, or they're trying to get to the station, and they get separated by the zombie truck driver. It's a zombie truck driver. Come on, you gotta say it.
Yeah. I love that. I love how they split up people because if you remember in the game, like they're sitting in his car and then like the truck comes and just splits them in half.
Yeah.
And that's how you split them up in the game and in the book as well. William Birkin. So it was nice to see William Birkin transform in the game, but how SD Perry describes with all the flesh and the bone and everything transforming, I was like, ugh, this is gross. Like, it was gross to see the eyeball, obviously, on like a PS1 or something, but like hearing it being described was really disgusting.
Yeah, it felt like really painful. Like it sounded like it would feel really painful and gross,
Hmm.
and it's just like all the bones are crunching, and the sinew is stretching, and the shit is expanding. It's just like it's like body horror basically. And of course, when you play the remake, and you get to see all that stuff like in the glorious high definition, and it's gross there too. It's really slimy looking and it's nasty.
Hmm. I want to know your opinion about Annette Birkin's little chapter.
Um, man, you might have jogged my memory a little bit on that because I'm actually drawing a little bit of a blank there.
Well, they discuss about like how her and William like did this virus thing, and like how Umbrella was like pretty much stealing the shit.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and like you get like more of that dialogue that Annette is like kind of just like how the remake where she was so much into her work compared to her own fucking daughter was kind of sad.
yeah. I now that you bring it up, they do kind of a similar thing in the book, and
Hmm.
yeah, it gives all the backstory of like there's they're stealing our work, our precious G virus research we gave all our lives to do, and all this stuff.
Hmm.
That honestly, that no, not exactly, but the book version of Annette is a little more closer to how she is in the remake.
Yeah,
It feels like in the remake they try to make her a little bit more of a sympathetic character.
in the
Uh,
remake or the book.
in the remake, like I'm saying, the book kind of starts to approach that.
Yeah,
Because in the game, she's just in the original game, she's just like crazy.
yeah. She just
She comes off
shoots.
crazy.
She just shoots random people. Well, not
Yeah,
really. I mean, Ada is trying to steal their work. But
but
would
she's like
you?
really aggressive and shit with Claire when she interacts with her too.
Hmm. And bringing up Sherry, I guess Claire and Sherry kind of have like a weak pairing in this book. Not
Uh,
compared because I think Leon and Ada did pretty well in this book because I don't know, maybe because it's a match, but like Claire and Sherry was like, oh, the struggles of not being treated as a kid and all that. Like I guess it just didn't.
it's
It felt clunky.
well, I'll say this: the dynamic with Leon and Ada is more interesting on the surface
Hmm.
than Claire and Sherry because it's like that's something that is uh, maybe a little bit more universal. Like you can kind of like get into, which is like, oh, this dude and this cop guy and this spy lady are getting entangled in this. They have this weird chemistry thing going on. You can kind of get into that a little bit.
Hmm.
Uh, it's two adults that have different backgrounds and they're working together.
Yeah.
And then with Claire and Sherry, it's this thing where it's like you have this girl who is just now really a young adult, and it's like she has to look after this younger tweener girl who's been abandoned by her parents. And it's like she seems like she has some ingenuity to her, and like she's able to kind of like survive despite the craziness of everything.
And Chief
But she's like,
Irons was pretty crazy in his book as
yeah,
well.
he's like he comes off more of a creeper in this than in the game because he's like he's the part that always got me with that is like when he's like looking at Claire, he's like up and down on her with his eyes and shit, and like you see all his perverted thoughts about her, and it's like fuck, okay,
Yeah, because then it's like coming to my elevator and to my deep dungeon and stuff, and it's like, okay, like this is weird, but I guess we're gonna have to go down there anyway. I don't know.
yeah, he comes off like more of a creeper. Of course, they fucking in the remake they turn that up to 11.
Yeah. And Mr. X makes a trip in this book.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Just a big dude just following you throughout this whole This whole police station. Did you think they written it pretty well?
Um, yeah, I thought she did a good job on this. Like, I actually prefer the first book more.
Mm.
Not by a whole lot, but I do. Uh, and I don't know. I think part of that a little bit is because I got more of what I wanted, like from the first game at
Hmm.
the time, out of that book. Because when they did remake, it's to me, even after all this other stuff, like we said, doing the other Nemesis Project videos, that's still my favorite game is the remake.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, two in the original game, they kind of had more characterization, they had more dialogue. You got kind of a better feel for the characters in general.
Hmm.
So it's kind of just echoing that and expanding on it, and so like it's good. It's still really good, but it's not as big a task, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, compared to
Hmm.
like writing the book for the first game.
Yeah, I could see what you're saying because like the first book, dealing with Bravo team and Alpha team, um, you have a lot of dynamic
Like
in
there's a
it.
lot to play with there. There's just a lot left unsaid, and that makes you wonder. It's like, wow, how do these guys hang out, or like, what do they? How do they talk to each other outside of this weird situation? And
Yeah, and it feels like in the second book you're just kind of having two people that don't know what the hell is going on learn as they go. I mean,
which is what happens in the game, basically.
yeah, in the I mean, it's still the people in the first one are learning as they go, but like you're having a conversation with other people, like when you meet Barry and all that stuff. In this one, it's literally from beginning to end what the happened in Resident Evil 2, just with a little side stories. Maybe that's why maybe that's why I like it a little better because like when I'm reading the book, I'm like, oh, I remember that scene. Like it's like I don't need to really like when you read a book and you're just like, I know what's gonna happen next, but I'm just gonna like skim through it.
uh, Sometimes I jump ahead a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, I do
Yeah.
it, but I don't skip. I just like okay, I just go back.
Mm-hmm.
But um, if I lose interest in a book completely, I just stop reading it.
Okay.
Or like if I give up, I give up. I'll flip to the end. What happens? Okay, fuck this, and I just throw it away. Because books are cheap. I mean, unless you buy a hardback, it's hard to feel really like you got cheated out of buying a book.
I don't know what's missing in in this book compared to the first book. I don't remember that much.
Um, that's the thing is I don't really think there's much missing or like it seemed to kind of follow what they were doing in the games, except they were just kind of splitting the duties up between the characters.
Yeah.
It's like at the same, sort of like how it was in the game. At the same time that Leon's going through the station here, Claire's going through the opposite side, and they're doing a loop-de-loo thing where they're just avoiding each other the entire time until they meet in the STARS office, and they find radios and they're able to talk a little bit.
You
Um,
see what really annoys me is like yeah, in the game I understand why like they should split up because you could have like two different characters and two different stories. In the book, I feel like they should have like stuck together. Like when they finally meet up, they should have just stuck together.
I guess, yeah, uh, probably,
Hmm.
but that wouldn't make it interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
If it's like, hey, I'm looking for this woman, I gotta find her, and then she's like, I'm looking for this little girl. It's like, okay, let's go find them,
Hmm.
and we'll meet back up. That was like, okay, why don't we both look for them together? Well, that might give you less of a chance of finding the other one. Yeah,
I mean, you're going from a police station all the way to a laboratory, so
well, they
like,
don't know that.
yeah.
Like to them, they're just like, we're just gonna search this station until we find them. So it's like, all right, you look for the girl, I'll look for the woman. and we'll meet up and we'll get pizza. I don't know.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it. I had a good read with this. Like I said, I think because I like two more than one, uh, I was just more into it.
Mhm.
But I do like the dialogue in one. I think that the dialogue in one was much better in that one than it was in the second one.
It felt more revelatory. It felt like you're really like you're getting more of a feel for like who these people are, kind of.
Hmm.
Whereas in two, like I said, two, they have more defined personalities. Even though I just said Claire felt kind of like a side character a little bit,
Yeah.
but
I don't have anything else to talk about unless you want to start getting into Galvin Cove.
did you start reading that one?
I started reading a couple of pages, so I'm not really.
So you're not real fine.
Yeah.
So okay, that one takes place like I think just a few weeks after when the first game takes place. Um, and it's kind of going over like what they're getting ready to do. Uh, like everything's fucked up. They're off the police force, and something happens to where like they feel like, oh, we can't even trust the Stars organization anymore. And Rebecca goes off with another Stars agent from like another state to
Hmm.
go check out this facility or something. Like something's going on, and they need to find like some proof. It's kind of hard to get into without spoiling it. Basically, the whole point of the book is Rebecca goes off on her own adventure with like these other characters
Just
from like
say
a
I don't care. I'll read it and
yeah from another Stars branch. And I mean, like I'm kind of doing it anyway naturally. I'm just kind of keeping it that way somehow. But
okay.
um, like it's you get more of her, and it's just the rest of these characters are all original characters. They have nothing to do with any games. They're only in this book or these next couple of books I'm talking about. Um, they go to Maine to investigate some island where there's a lighthouse. Actually,
Ooh.
yeah, and they come across some suspect umbrella activity, and shit hits the fan. It's interesting though, like the original characters come off pretty well. Um, there's a pretty messed up scene where it's like one of them gets infected in the book,
Okay.
like slowly over time. It's like she doesn't even realize it. It's like they go somewhere and then over the next I don't know 50, 75, 100 pages she's progressively feeling worse.
Hmm.
So it's like the first time you get like kind of the insight into like, oh, what is a live infection like? Like how's that work? It's going on in this book.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool and it's messed up at the same time. Uh and there's not really zombies in it. It's there's something else. It's not even like hunters or anything really. It's like some other kind of entity or monster that gets made up. And
Would you
there's a crazy mad doctor scientist man.
would you want to see this as a video game?
I always thought that like when I read it back in the day, I was like, hey, it'd be kind of cool if there's a game made of this. I'd play it. I mean, put a Resident Evil game in front of me and I'll probably play it. Like, I'll find out if it sucks or not, and I'll tell you, believe it. So yeah,
I have a thing that I would probably say to you that without using third person survival horror, I mean, you could use survival horror as a genre, but what type of video game? Like, would you have a first person shooter just like how Resident Evil 7 is? Would you do some type of strategy game? Something. I'm trying to think. Not an RTS. That would be fucking weird. Real time strategy. Fucking Rebecca Chambers and team. I'm. I don't know. I think a first person experience would be good for that.
I can't pick the traditional third person.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it'd have to be that. It's the only other thing that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you ask me, because of when it comes out, what it's doing, and all that kind of stuff, it makes me want to go to like, yeah, it has to be the third person. It has to be all that stuff.
Okay.
It doesn't even have to necessarily be the fixed cameras. It could be like the new style.
Yeah, the over the shoulder kind of thing.
Yeah, like I would be fine with that.
Cool.
Um, yeah, I don't want to get too much into the plot for other people too if they're watching or listening.
Is the quote unquote boss battle good in this book?
Um, I man, I don't really remember now. Like, cause like here's the thing, I read the other books a lot more than that one.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, especially the ones adapted from the games. But like I did read that one again recently, and I read all these like last year,
Okay.
and I like it. It's pretty strong. It's one of the stronger entries in that series of books. So the series is still holding up as we're going. And then it goes into let's see. Hang on just a second.
All right. Guys, hello. We're talking about the Resident Evil books. I see Surge. If anybody's wondering on the podcast version, we're streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/JoeDubs35. I'm Joe Dubs. We have Yo Surge in the chat going, you're. What's going on, buddy? So yeah, I'm actually excited to dive right back into these books because the books are amazing. And I'm just all around excited for Resident Evil. I mean, we have PlayStation 5 coming out next week, and hopefully we'll get more stuff about Resident Evil 8. And we got Zach back. What's up?
I'm back. Sorry about that. Had to let the cat in. Anyway, where was I?
You didn't want to go too deep into the plot because you're about to discuss another book.
Yeah, this is so you go from the first game, Calvin Cove, Resident Evil 2, and then it goes into Underworld, which is another all original novel.
Mm-hmm.
There was only 2 of them. This is the second one.
Yep.
And it's a mixture of the characters from that Calvin Cove book and Leon and Claire and Rebecca working together with them. Mm-hmm. They all basically kind of hook up after the events of Resident Evil 2. And cool. Again, they're looking for oh man, that's something we just totally overlooked.
What?
This is a good segue, actually. What did you think of that character Trent that was like helping select people out in the plot, for both of these books? Do you remember that guy?
Vaguely.
So man, I can't believe I just totally let that go without saying anything. But at least I remembered this time right here. Mm-hmm. So remember in the first book where like I think Jill, they're getting equipment and Jill's like, "Oh shit, I forgot something," and she goes back to grab something from her locker or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a guy just in the locker room there, and she's like,
"Oh yeah,
who are you?" And then he's like, I'm a friend. My name is Trent." And then he basically warns her of like what's about to happen in like a really vague way.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're about to get into some real shit." He doesn't say it like that, but like, you're going into like kind of a messed up situation. I want to help you. Take this. And he gives her like a miniature, like handheld, like computer, like a Palm Pilot, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
And it has like maps and like some of the answers for like the puzzles in the mansion. So in a way, it kind of explains like how somebody has like that weird map system in the game. is how I took that.
So what should we represent Trent to be? You think Trent is the player? Like maybe she made that character as the player and be like, hey, it was like very meta. Be like, hey, you're about to go in some shit. Here's some like puzzle answers here. I'm your strategy guide person.
I don't think so entirely. I think it was just like a device to make it to where the characters don't bumble around so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, because if they went in that place with no map at all, I understand they just find maps laying around the mansion, but that's kind of weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if this is supposed to, we're supposed to take that this is really happening
Yeah.
in the context of the book. So this is a realistic situation. So realistically, who leaves maps around of their own fucking house?
Maybe
Like,
Rich.
you're not gonna find that though. So it's like, it's not a video game. It's not a weird Japanese video game in here. This is really happening.
Yeah.
So this guy is like, more or less, you kind of sort of figure out in this first book, he is in Umbrella, and he's like a high-ranking official in Umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Over the course of each of these books, you learn a little bit more details about this guy, and like, he's the ones that kind of he kind of gives the people in the Calvin Cove book kind of like their mission, like, hey, if you want to find some dirt on Umbrella, go to this lighthouse in Maine, and that's how they figure that out.
Yep.
And then in the book for 2, I think he helps Ada. I think he's the one that hires her.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, he's the one that hires her, and she kind of has a leg up on everybody else with all the stuff she knows. I don't think he ever crosses paths with anybody else, though.
I wonder if he's in the video game, or was that just original character, you think?
No, that's just a character that she made up.
Okay. That's cool.
And then, like, and yeah, here in the 4th book, Underworld, like, he's like, hey, if you want to fuck Umbrella up some more, here's a facility in Utah or something. I think it was Utah. And like, go here, and there you can get this information, this proof, this stuff to help you. And it helps me because I hate Umbrella. And it's like, okay, guy.
I wonder what his end game's going to be, because is he just being a whistleblower, or is he just being a guy that wants to defeat his competition so he gets all of Umbrella?
You kind of learn, like, later, as you read more of these books, you learn, like, what his deal is with Umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
But it becomes very apparent he's a really high-ranking official in Umbrella.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, in this 4th book, like, all the protagonists except for the old ones group up and go to this facility, and it's crazy. It's like this big, huge experimental facility where they set up, like, testing grounds for, like, the various monsters they make.
Mm-hmm.
Like hunters. It's all like weird simulated environments. Like, there's a desert area, and then there's a rainforest for, like, flying enemies. Yeah, flying enemies in Resident Evil are like some of the most annoying fucking shits ever.
Yeah, Resident Evil 5. Fuck off.
Fuck those things.
Wuhan bats.
The Wuhan bat, man. The thing that's the most annoying was those weird bugs that would, like, grab you and insta kill you. I hated those things.
Yeah.
But anyway, like, it's getting off the plot here. There's hunters. There's weird scorpions, like in Zero, but except there's more of them.
Mm-hmm.
There were these, like, there was this weird dinosaur-like thing called Fossil. It was like if you mixed a tyrant with a dinosaur. And apparently its whole thing was it would just eat. All it would do is eat. It would never stop being hungry. And it eats everything. So, like, if you're in its path, it's going to eat you.
That's crazy.
So it's not going to rip you apart. He's just going to fucking rip you apart and eat you. It's like, okay, that's kind of scary, I guess. I don't know how to feel about being eaten by one of those things. That's kind of all I'll say about that. It's interaction between the some of the established characters with the original ones, and it's kind of cool because it's like Rebecca and Leon and Claire cross paths, and that never happened ever.
Yeah, and I guess this is where you kind of learn what happens until Code Veronica with Claire. Does this feed off?
Somewhat, not really, honestly.
Okay.
Because like when she wrote that book, like Code Veronica, I think just now was coming out, so she's probably working on it a little bit before that. Because that was something else she kind of cleared up was like, did Capcom ever work with you on these books? She's like, no. They never. It was just some kind of deal they made with like a publishing house. Hey, can you make books for us to release to the public? And they're like, yes, we can do that. And they're like, do that.
Nice.
um, the next one was for Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. It's just doing the plot of Nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
But you learn more about Carlos. You learn more about the UBCS guys. Trent helps Carlos this time.
Okay.
And he kind of helps him out a little bit. Tells him like you're he pretty much says you guys are going to get fucked. You're going to do a suicide mission essentially. He's like, if you want to live, you need to go to the diner in Raccoon City and pick up the payphone and call this number. And he's like, what? And he's like, you're crazy, man. You loco, SA. And he's fucking just walks off. He's fucking, fuck you, man. But then he gets in there and the shit happens. And then he just thinks, I have to find that diner and make that fucking phone call or I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And that's how you meet Carlos in the diner.
That's awesome. How was
what were you going to say?
Nikolai? How was he in this book?
He's insane. Like they portray him more like he's like almost like a borderline serial killer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting actually. Like it talks like he's doing what you eventually like learn in the game, which is he's picking off like all these guys.
Mm-hmm.
So like he can have the proof. They kind of expand on that more in this. Where it's set up that there's a bunch of these supervisor guys, and then like he figures out if I kill all these supervisor guys, they'll just have to deal with me. And that'll make everything I know and all the data I have more valuable. And it goes through like this really long process where he just like, he snipes a guy from a rooftop. He just fucking shoots him and all this shit. He's just like, there's a couple times where he's killing guys.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. There's more Jill. There's no good explanation for that's one of probably the weaker parts of the writing is like she has to try to explain why Jill's wearing what she's wearing, and it's just not buying it. It's like for freedom of movement, and I'm like, it's September. It's almost October. Women get cold. They get cold easier than men.
So she's still wearing the tube top with that skirt, right?
Yep, for freedom of movement. I'm like, no. I mean, yeah, when you wear a dress, a kilt, you feel much freer.
Yeah.
But I don't know about that, man. I just feel like she would be more like, Jesus, I'm so cold. I need a coat. I'm just because women get cold. You know.
What about the guy in the warehouse? Is he in this book?
For as long as he is in the game.
Okay.
They have their argument, and he gets in there and he overacts.
That's funny.
I'm trying to think of like stuff that they do that's a little different.
Nemesis. What about? Did we get a backstory about him?
No.
No, he's just straight up a killer, killing the STARS members, pretty much.
Like yeah, Nikolai knows about the Nemesis. That's kind of it. Like he just knows about it before going in.
Okay.
It's like, okay, so he knows to avoid it and shit, and like he's able to evade it because he just knows about it.
All right.
That's kind of it. It's just hitting the beats of the game. It doesn't do that much that's different, really.
Does Jill Valentine slap Carlos?
I think so. I think she did. It's an iconic moment.
Yep.
That one's pretty good too. It holds up. Then she adapts Code Veronica, and that's where it starts getting iffy. And part of this is because I think she stops playing the games. Here, I think she cheated when she was doing Code Veronica because some things weren't adding up, and it seemed like she was jumping around a lot.
Do you
Like,
think? Sorry to interrupt, but do
no,
you
it's fine.
think? I get it. She's a sci-fi writer, but do you think she kind of lost interest a little bit because all the other games have an interesting dynamic? Well, like obviously everything's engineered to be like, oh, we're building this nemesis, building this tyrant. This is what happened to people with zombies and frogs and all and rats and all that stuff. And then you get to Code Veronica, and your paranormal gets into it a little bit.
It's weird. It's just, to me, it's not set up as strong. It feels really weird compared to the other games
Hmm.
because they're set in like this. This is a contemporary kind of, with the exception of Resident Evil 1, I guess, which is just like a weird location.
Yeah.
But it's like it's grounded in like this is a sci-fi horror thing that you eventually uncover. Uh, I guess maybe they're trying to do that again in Code Veronica, but it just didn't work as well.
Okay.
We've been over that. We've done our Code Veronica video thing, and we were both like, "This is weird," and it's weird because of these reasons. So if you want to know why it's weird, go back and check that one out. you know, um, but I think when she did this one, I think she was going off of a strategy guide. It comes off that way because there's just a lot of times where she's skipping around.
Hmm.
I feel like she's skipping parts, and I don't know. Do you have it yet? Do you have the book in your possession?
No, I'm actually going to be buying the books, like the whole set, pretty much soon.
It's the shortest one.
Oh, really?
That's another reason why I feel like she skipped around. It's the smallest book.
You know what I find funny about Code Veronica as a game is like
What?
it's probably one of the hardest of the rest, right?
It
My
is because of weird reasons. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like I feel like she did based off of what you're saying to me. It sounded like one, she probably the plot was kind of confusing to her. Two, um, probably playing this game is like fuck. I don't want to get through it, and then she probably read the strategy guide and just winged it pretty much.
That was definitely the impression I got reading it again recently. Like I
Hmm.
was just like, this is what she did, and it suffers for that a little bit, and it also suffers because it's an adaptation of Code Veronica. Now there could have been an opportunity to fix some things.
Was Steve annoying, just like the game?
He's still annoying, but he's like not as insufferable. Like
Huh.
you know,
I'm Canadian.
it, yeah, that doesn't come across because now you can just, but in your head, it's always going to be that voice
Mm-hmm.
because that's what we were exposed to.
Yeah.
But like there's more stuff with Alfred that's kind of interesting, and he's a total nutcase in the book, and that's kind of entertaining a little bit.
Okay.
Um, there's more stuff with Wesker. There's more stuff with Chris and Leon. Actually, there's a scene where Leon tells, remember when she's like, I can send an email to Leon and he can get Chris for me. It basically is that scene.
Oh God. Okay. All right.
So like Leon's like, oh, Chris, I found Claire, blah, blah, blah. And there's like a whole chapter where they're just talking to each other.
Well, that's why I asked you in the other book. Is like, do they kind of lead off why Claire is there?
No, it kind of just says like she gets a tip somehow or something, and she finds out Chris went to Europe, so she kind of breaks off from the group to go to Europe to find him, and just ends up at that facility because it was a lead,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's what happens.
Our boy
Um,
Chris is starting to fucking eat those steroids. He's getting ready. He's getting pumped. He's probably reading about it before he gets pumped.
he was just about to start, but he had to stop because he had to find his sister.
Yep.
But this game is executed weirdly, and the plot's strange, and the writing is weird, and somebody going off of a strategy guide to try to fill in blanks
Hmm.
without playing the whole game and maybe understanding like, whoa, this game has some problems with the writing. Like maybe we need to make some adjustments. She did that a little bit, not enough. That's why I'm still kind of like, man, I hope they remake Code Veronica. That game needs it.
Yep.
It needs it. Like if they never did a remake of Resident Evil 3, I wouldn't be too fucking mad
I kind
because
of
it's good. Like
I kind of want them to fix the like, and what I mean fix is like get the paranormal I'm almost saying like activity, but the paranormal stuff in that game that threw me off a little bit in that game because it's just like you're coming from all these mutations to. I guess they're testing magic. Like we're about to get to the bug 0 hour, which is pretty much Resident Evil 0. And I thought that game as well, being like these this guy who's on the hill singing and shit and leeches coming around. That stuff starts to like sail away from what Resident Evil became popular about.
yeah.
And weird. But then again, that's Japanese people when it comes to, making games and movies and TV shows.
And see, here's the thing now though, is because of Resident Evil 7, people are gonna say, "Oh, well, there's paranormal shit in 7," but the thing is, it isn't really.
Mm-hmm.
And when you learn what the game tells you everything you need to know about what's really going on.
Yeah.
It's not. There's no paranormal shit. The only thing you could argue might be paranormal is that moment when Ethan he has that weird vision where he's talking to Jack and shit after they're dead, and like when he goes unconscious before he wakes up at that weird fucking area where there's the boat.
Yeah, where the dad's like, yeah, we met her and like she was a nice little kid, and then all of a sudden she fucking just killed us.
How did that happen? There's not like how. What did he go to the afterlife briefly and he met with Jack and they had that conversation and then he came back out the other side?
Maybe. I think they're I think they're kind of like putting that in there. But
it's the most implausible part of the game.
Yeah, and this kind of goes off of like remember I was disappointed about Resident Evil 8, be like, oh, fucking werewolves and shit and all these like paranormal shit that's flying around in the house.
And then you saw the fucking trailer and it was like, okay.
Yeah, and, like they talk about a parasite and shit. Like when you have a parasite that's doing that, and then you have like in Resident Evil 7 where this mold thing from that little girl is doing all this stuff. Like you understand because without that thing, then this thing wouldn't happen. In Code Veronica, it's just like, oh, this person who is pretty much schizo or, loves his sister and it's weird. And there's like this witch thing. And then all of a sudden Wesker is like Neo from fucking Matrix out of nowhere.
Well, he's enhanced by the virus thing.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that always came off like this is what the virus was supposed to do. Like all this other shit was side effects. Like there wasn't supposed to be zombies.
Yeah.
That was something that they didn't know was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a byproduct of a leak. But like that's always what they were trying to do. That's his result, which I think we actually talked about that in the review of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with Alexia is we're going on this big tangent, but it's still related to what we're talking about. Because she doesn't do a good job of. She basically just goes with what they did in the game for her too.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh, she injects the virus bullshit into herself. Alexia does and goes fucking stasis sleep for 15 years or whatever the fuck. And then she comes back out of it, and then all of a sudden she can control and grow tentacles over really long distances, like miles, and she has pyrokinesis.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what that is, that's being able to control fire with your mind. And because the virus, I'm like, no, that's not. God damn it. That's magic. She's a mutant, I guess. I don't know.
I feel like Code Veronica was probably a different game. Kind of like what if you ever watched the Cloverfield movies, like they just take other stories and they just say like this is happening in the Cloverfield universe. That's how I felt like how Code Veronica, and they're just like, all right, we're gonna put Claire in there, we're gonna put Chris Redfield and Wesker, and there you go. There's another game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's kind of all I'm really willing to say about that one. Is she jumps around, obviously writes out off of what she finds out in a strategy guide, and doesn't improve much. And that's unfortunate because it could have used some improvement. Then you get into 0 Hour. This is what's weird to me is the release dates for these books, the copyright dates, kind of coincide with, okay, this came out like a year after the game came out.
Yeah.
Is how it follows. And after Code Veronica, which was like 2001, Resident Evil 0 came out a year later after that book. And we have like a 4-year gap or some shit between the next book, like in that game. I remember that. It was like, okay, Resident Evil 0 comes out 2002, and I was like, man, I can't wait to read the adaptation for this one. I remember thinking that. And I waited for 3 years to get it. I was like, why did this take so long? What the fuck? Like, did they? And I was like, whatever, it's here. I'm gonna read it, and it was boring. I hate to say that because, you know, maybe it'll make you less enthusiastic about wanting to read it, but it suffers because it's an adaptation of Resident Evil 0.
Yeah. Like I said, that game, like when it first came out, I was like, wow, you know, we're going back to its roots. You know what I mean? Back to the mansion, or around the mansion area. And we get to play with Rebecca, and this is gonna be cool. And you're gonna be with this guy named Billy. That's gonna be cool, right? And then frustration.
Now, she does expand on Billy some, and that's cool. The big problem with this book, though, is the lack of characters.
Is it just Billy and Rebecca?
It's just Billy and Rebecca mostly, and sometimes it jumps over to Wesker or Marcus or Birkin.
With Trent?
Very briefly. Trent? No. I think he's just at a scene at the end of the book, if I remember right.
Even Trent doesn't like the book.
Yeah, he shows up in the end to be like, I'm Trent or something. But I'm not saying you can't write a book with like very little characters or one character, because that's not true. I've read a book that has one character in it. It's called Hatchet. It's just about that kid who gets stranded out in the woods. He has to fucking survive. And that was like some of the best shit I ever read in my life, honestly.
I think we're seeing a trend because pretty much the last 2 books is, you said, is not great. And
to me, it kind of nosedives in quality at Code Veronica. It starts going, and then like this one's like down in here. Like
maybe she just got burnt out with the deadlines that she was working with. Maybe.
Well, in her interviews, she made it pretty obvious. It was like, I just do these for money, you know. And she used to play the games, and I think that used to help her kind of stay interested a little bit. And life and getting older caused her to not be able to play the games as much. And I don't think she even played the game for this one. She probably did a strategy guide again or something.
Was YouTube out by then? No, right?
No, because she was probably writing this in like 2004. Man, if only we could go back to 2004. We wouldn't be here doing this right now.
That's fucking 90s. I want to go back to the 90s.
It would be like really shitty, grainy fucking camera or something. And the audio would be like, hey guys, what's up? Or something like,
we're talking about Resident Evil. It's a crazy game. All zombies and lickers and tyrants and stuff.
Do you remember how people used to sound like on Xbox Live, like on the original Xbox?
Yeah.
Or like Counter-Strike. You ever play Counter-Strike? You remember how people would sound? That's what we would sound like. Everybody would sound the same somehow. But there's not much I want to say about that one. And then Resident Evil 4 came out, and I was like, oh man, I want to read an adaptation for Resident Evil 4, and that never happened.
I think we need to find an author and just harass him and be like, "Hey, write some Resident Evil books. Do 4."
No, because like if we're gonna go by the pattern that's cropped up here, maybe she's just done. Maybe she just doesn't want to do it anymore.
No, I'm talking about another author.
Another author? Sure,
Yeah.
I guess. But this gets into something else though too a little bit. It's like, would I read a novelization of Resident Evil 4? Yeah, I guess I'd kind of like to see how that turns out. I'm just too big of a nerd to like not leave it alone.
Yeah.
But like, it's sort of like you're talking about like, oh man, they're making a Resident Evil. Let's make a movie out of Resident Evil 2. And at this point, I would probably just go, why? Because the remake of Resident Evil 2 is kind of like already very cinematic and shit. Why do we need a movie of that?
Yeah.
It's like the Uncharted argument. Hollywood is obsessed with making an Uncharted movie when it's already very much like a movie, and that's what people talk about and bring up about it so much. Is like, it feels like I'm playing a movie.
But Tom Holland's gonna be in it. Whoa, Spider-Man!
I don't care if that feels like so miscast to me. Like, does that not feel off to you?
They had a chance
that Tom Holland is Nathan Drake.
They had a chance about 15 years ago to use Nathan Fillion as fucking Nathan Drake, and I think he's the great Nathan Drake, aka Nathan Fillion.
Yeah.
And I don't know. What I will say is the cosplay. I'm gonna call it the cosplay. He looks like a good young Nathan Drake. Tom Holland's a good actor, but I don't know. They have Mark Wahlberg being fucking Sully, which is weird.
That is weird.
Mm-hmm.
He's not that old yet.
It's a young story. I think they're doing like a prequel kind of thing before the games.
Oh, okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Tangent, but sort of. I mean, we're just talking about movie game adaptations. This is about game adaptations to something.
Well, I mean, I was bringing it up in the beginning. Is they're starting to show things about the live action that they're doing, the reboot of Resident Evil movies, because Paul W.S. Anderson fucking ruined the franchise, and he's about to ruin fucking Monster Hunter now.
Is there anything to ruin in Monster Hunter?
Monster Hunter is cool, but
I mean, does it have like a plot though?
I think there's lore. I just don't really care about the lore. I just want to kill big monsters.
Because I was kind of under the impression that Monster Hunter did not really have a plot.
You know how people are weird. Like they have to.
I guess, like I'm not saying it doesn't. That's just, like I said, that's an impression.
Mm-hmm.
That was always the big hang up with Resident Evil. Is like Resident Evil actually had a plot and characters and shit, and people wanted to see those characters because back in those days, when those games were new, you were limited on what you could do.
Well, I don't know if you saw the trailer for Monster Hunter, but it's this army people that get sucked into like a wormhole and end up in being this Monster Hunter world.
What?
Yeah, it's weird because they have a Humvee and fucking guns and shit. So
it's what?
It's Paul W.S. Anderson could go suck a dick.
I don't even like Monster Hunter, and I'm offended by that.
But I don't know. I'm starting to have a little hope. Not too much hope yet with the reboot that they're doing, because I think the reboot's finally gonna hit the game pretty well.
Yeah, after I found out, like, okay, we're gonna do the game plot, I'm like, okay, like I'm kind of trying to make a case for maybe we don't need to try to do that as much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But for that game, yeah, I think I want to see that. You know,
Yeah.
I still say like what I would want is a series that is like, you know, the build up to the mansion incident, and oh my god, the mansion incident,
Mm-hmm.
and then so on and so forth. You know, I think it would better serve as a series than a movie.
Yeah. All right. I mean, what else? What do you want to? Do you want to see more books for Resident Evil? Do you want to see originals of Resident Evil, meaning like how Underworld and Call I forgot the Rebecca one already.
Calvin Cove.
Calvin Cove. Do you want to see more of that? Not in a game format, but like in a book format.
In a book. I don't know now. Because more games nowadays seem to try to have a plot than what they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Despite what some people will even say about the old games compared to now, you can't deny they try to have more plot heavy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would depend. Like I'd have to see somebody do a trial run on an established game. Like I'll do a novelization of 4 and we'll see how that goes because that's one of the most popular games. So that sounds like a surefire bet for like we'll see how this guy does. He's doing an adaptation of 4. People fucking love that game.
Maybe I should write the Resident Evil 4 book and like pitch it to Capcom. I mean, they'll probably like throw money at me.
But I was going to say, I don't think you could do original content anymore without their approval.
Mm-hmm.
Because now they're a lot more hands-on about what comes out and what's official and what's canon and what isn't.
Yeah.
So like a lot of those, like those CG movies, I think are canon. And the manga, do you know about the Resident Evil mangas?
Yeah, I got some of them.
Not the manhwas, that's something else. Like I don't know if you know about those or not.
I know about that, but I do got the manga.
I have a manhwa. I have the one for Code Veronica actually. Or one of them. Like that was so weird that I was able to find that. And looking back on it now, I bought that at Borders when Borders still existed. I guess I'm dating myself, but like we used to have this thing called a bookstore.
Now it's Barnes and Nobles.
Yeah, or Books A Million.
Mm-hmm.
But like I found that in Borders like in 2002 or something. And it was translated in English. And I was like, I just thought, oh, is this like a manga? It's weird though because it's tall. It's almost like a comic book format.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, it looks like manga. It's just in color, and it's left to right instead of right to left. It was like, I guess it is. I guess it's just is like Americanized manga, like they westernized it, is what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't the case at all. There were essentially, I think, Taiwanese or like Hong Kong comic book adaptations of Resident Evil. And there's a lot of them. There's original stuff and there's adaptations for the games. Some people really like them. There's like things that happen in them that are pretty interesting.
I gotta check that out.
Like there's one where like I know about this because there's like a channel I sort of vaguely follow that's Resident Evil related where this guy reviews them kind of, and he talks about how Jill has like this nightmare in Resident Evil 3 in the Resident Evil 3 one, where she's like back in the mansion and like just crazy shit happens to her and it's actually kind of a cool sequence.
That's interesting.
And there was like speculation is like, will they do this in the Resident Evil 3 remake? And I'm like, that'd be kind of cool actually if there was like a moment like when she gets infected and just fucking passes out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she would have a fever dream and it would be like she's back in the mansion or some shit. You play that a little bit.
Well, I thought that's what they were gonna do, like DLC wise. Like you could add something there.
Yeah, that was wild speculation, and the people that knew about that thing in the manhwa, I think, fueled it more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
But the manga, the point I was trying to make was a lot of those mangas are like canon. So it's like now they try to be more hands-on about stuff like that than they used to.
Yeah, the manga I think is where they come up with like the backstory of Nemesis, like who is Nemesis, pretty much. Like
They also explain a lot of the backstory for like the BSAA. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah.
There's like a lot more stories that have to do with BSAA people and like what was Claire doing all this time because she kind of just fucks off for the rest of the plot after Code Veronica, she just stops showing up.
Pretty much.
So there's more stories with her doing stuff and other things.
All right. I mean, I don't know what else to talk about unless you have some notes that you want to hit up.
No,
No? Well,
that's it.
we did it. We did it less time than the actual wrestling talk, which is kind of weird.
We went longer than what I thought we would on this, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought we would probably talk about this in an hour. Nope.
Nope. Anything that
It's like
we
almost 2.
anything that we like, we always like end up doing like an hour and a half to 2 hours or even more. So I think that's where we're ending, guys. The next thing on the list that we're gonna have to hit up is Resident Evil 6. I think that's the next big game that we're gonna need to finish and talk about. And then we have to get through the Revelation games and then Resident Evil 7. And then I know Zach wants to talk about some oddball games like Umbrella Chronicles. Did we talk about Deadly Silence? Did we want to get that in Gaiden pretty much?
Yeah, later. I have to get a copy of Gaiden first,
Okay.
but because I'm weird like that. But yeah, I was gonna like get footage for Dark Side Chronicles and Umbrella Chronicles, and we're probably gonna talk about it a little bit. There's not much to say probably about Umbrella Chronicles, but there's more original content and stuff in Dark Side Chronicles, I think.
Dark Side Chronicles is on PS3, right?
Yeah, I think they both got ported to PS3 actually.
Cool. I have a PS3 now, so I could just get that and play it. Yeah, we got the Revelation games we need to get through, Resident Evil 7, and then obviously when Resident Evil 8 comes out, we're gonna have to talk about that as well.
Primarily, we got to do 6, though.
Yeah, 6 is the next big thing that we need to get through. But that's where we'll end the Nemesis project of us talking about the books. If you want to catch more of the Nemesis project, Getting Some Color, which that's going to be next week, everybody. If you are a Getting Some Color fan with me and Zach, that's going to be next week. We're going to be doing, what is it, February? It's the second week of February, 1993, pretty much.
That's right, brothers.
Yeah. And if you like movies, we are doing Roger Moore, James Bond, and more Bond. And that's Big Trouble Little Podcast. If you type in Nerd of You Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Red Circle, you'll find all of those podcasts. But until next time, everybody, we don't have a sign off for this one, so I guess be evil. I don't know.
Be tasty.
Itchy tasty. Bye, guys.